Chris O'Connor here. Join the Curmudgeon Rock Report's invite-only curmudgeonly community at facebook.com/curmudgeonrock. Also look out for a Spotify playlist that pays honor to this episode.
This is the Curmudgeon Rock Report, and this is your podcast made by rock geek iconoclastic outsiders for rock geek iconoclastic outsiders. For those of you who lament that rock music has gone the way of jazz and slipped into niche genre status, we are here to keep that flame alive by providing insight, analysis, recommendations, and honest takes, not hot takes. And hey, there's a good chance you'll learn some rock history you never knew before. Valentine's Day was earlier this month, and that got us thinking. Music history, not just rock and roll history, is filled with love songs. And what kinds of songs are just as prevalent as love songs? Breakup songs! Seriously, breakup songs span all genres for multiple centuries. If we wanted to make a list of the greatest breakup songs of all time, that would be 1,000 songs going into at least 10 episodes. No, we are not going to do that. However, albums are fair game. The album, as a medium to present music, is a purely 20th century thing that still exists to this day for a niche market. They also allow for artists and bands to present a body of music that is thematic and even conceptual. That, of course, brings us to breakup albums. Believe it or not, there have been many albums throughout music history whose songs are tied together by the thematic thread of romantic disillusionment and the end of love. Some of them are among the greatest albums ever made. Therefore, to belatedly commemorate Valentine's Day in our twisted, perverse, curmudgeonly way, we're going to bring you what we think are the 15 greatest breakup albums of all time. Why 15? Well, Valentine's Day is on February 14th. Add one more day for good luck in keeping that relationship going, and you have 15. Curmudgeonly logic, everyone! So, dim down those lights, serve yourself a stiff drink to drown away that lovelorn melancholy, and let's take a trip down to Heartbreak Hotel as we present you the 15 greatest albums to listen to while wallowing in those heartbreak blues. And welcome to the Curmudgeon Rock Report.
All right, sir, let's get right into it, and let's get into the parallel universe, everybody.
Yes, let's get out of this world and into a better one.
Yeah, there's no such thing as Donald Trump in a parallel universe, which is a good thing. But what there is in the parallel universe is rock and roll. Lots of rock and roll that's still on the radio. There's actually such a thing as independent radio. And, it's the zeitgeist. It's the thing, man. It's on the billboards and it's all over the place. They're on the cover of Rolling Stone, where rock bands actually still value being on the cover of Rolling Stone, too. And so that's the world that we're joining. This is the segment of the show where we cover new and newish artists that we think that you would dig. And in a fair, just world, a parallel universe, these folks would be quite big or would get more of a profile than they have already. So, Art, I got to say, you've been inviting a lot more men in your life lately. Wow.
Yeah.
He really loves men, everybody.
Oh, boy. Yes. Last episode, as part of our great older albums from the Vault segment, I reviewed the amazing 2013 album New Moon by Brooklyn, New York band The Men. Afterward, I did a little cursory lookup on them to see when their next album would be coming out. Lo and behold, they released an album last year, and I didn't even know of it. Thanks, Mojo Magazine, my usually favorite source of new music, for not reviewing the latest album by a band that you've reviewed countless times. Fuck you. Anyway, this latest album, called Buyer Beware from last year, is a cracker of pure punk rock fury. These guys are in their late 30s, probably early 40s, and for them to be making a record of such amplified aggression and unhinged energy is really remarkable, especially considering how most rock artists of their age or their age group have already started to mellow out or already are mellowing out. The first 9 tracks buzz by like a whirling dervish of rocking yet tuneful intensity. Toward the end, there are a couple of tracks that get too sludgy for their own good and don't mesh with the style of the rest of the album. Nevertheless, it's still a very strong 4 out of 5 star album that might have made my top 10 for the year had I heard it at the time. Chris?
Yeah, probably would have made mine too. Buyer do not beware. This is a kick-ass album. Sometimes in this life, we all just need to bash the fuck out, right?
Yep.
And that's what the men do here. And sometimes they do it with a little boogie woogie. You know, like the whole middle of this record is just kick-ass. PO 96, Charm, Blackheart Blue, which is my favorite song on the record, Nothing Wrong, and then Control, which is also freaking awesome. And so basically it's straight ahead chug-a-lug punk rock, but it also has this kind of weird, unhinged Hawkwind energy to it.
Yeah.
Where Hawkwind albums, the early Hawkwind albums always felt like they were going to go off the rails, that they were just bananas. And there's some of that bananas energy to most of this record. Like you said, towards the end, it gets a little weird. But before then, yeah, the men are in top form. So, yeah, everybody check out the men and see them again. And from there,
what do you got, Chris?
We're going a little quieter from my selection. This is an album that was released in December, you know, right at the end of the year. So basically, it ducked top 10 season. Wouldn't have made my top 10, but it's still really strong. It's an album by this Irish kid, 23-year-old kid named, he goes by Dove Ellis. And the name of the album is Blizzard. And so let's talk about this good little folk rock, ballady type record. Irish folk rock crooner Thomas O'Donoghue goes by the nom de plume Dove Ellis. Dove is a pretty apt performative first name, as the 23-year-old singer-songwriter his voice is just as lovely as a dove and soars just as gorgeously as one. On his debut album Blizzard, released in December last year, Ellis displays a high emotive voice that evokes the stylings of folks like Jeff Buckley, Tom York, and Elliott Smith. And there's also a production choice here where he adds vocal overdubs that veer the proceedings at time into the realm of Freddie Mercury and Queen. Think about all the vocal overdubs on all the great Queen stuff from the 70s. Like think Bicycle Race and that kind of overdubbing. Ellis' songs themselves weave in and out of plain drama and strangely effective melodrama. He mixes mid-tempo semi-rockers with shameless ballads to nice effect. Ellis actually opened for Band of the Moment Geese on its fall tour last year, ensuring a full night of freaky-deaky vocals for all in attendance. Highlights of the 10-song, 34.5-minute Blizzard include the soulful groover Pale song, which juxtaposes electric piano, acoustic strumming, and bell-like electric guitar to engaging effect and features the astute lyric, quote, "The past is like a sign that never talks, a sign you think you've lived, but it's just stone with a little chalk." There's the poignant Love Is, which starts out like a Queen mini-opera, but then segues surprisingly into muscular guitar and driving drums as Ellis defines love in stark and desperate terms. There's the jaunty Celtic-flavored bopper Jaundice, which receives added texture from accordion and woodwinds. There's the thoughtful acoustic guitar-driven folk pop tune To the Sandals, on which Ellis's voice is especially resonant. And then there's the beautiful album closer Away You Stride, on which Ellis ends his first missive quite romantically and with an incredible falsetto, declaring, "I cut out my heart, I'm hoping to spend it on you." The strongest of these songs is probably To the Sandals, which displays a sonic and lyrical maturity that juts slightly ahead of the rest of the material on Blizzard. If this young contender heads more in that direction on subsequent albums, then he has a bright future indeed. Check out Dove Ellis, everybody, and prep yourself for maximal prettiness. Arturo, what say you?
I think this is a pretty good record. My complaint about Dove Ellis is twofold. He tries too hard to sound like Tommy York from Radiohead, and he needs either a collaborator or a producer to rein in his melodramatic tendencies. Those tendencies tend to overwhelm his songs and make them cringe-inducing. It isn't a surprise that the 3 best songs on the album are the ones that were chosen as singles. The anthemic Love Is, the beautifully melodic Pale song, and the one you just mentioned, like To the Sandals, which sounds to me like Van Morrison joins a jam band.
Yep,
you know,
pretty much.
I give it 3 out of 5 stars. I agree he's someone to watch, especially if he matures as a writer and, cuts down on the wallow in his sadness crap.
Yeah, well, I think the sadness, what he needs is a more disciplined sadness that,
Sure.
he is very emotive, only occasionally overly emotive. I don't mind the melodrama as much as you do here because I think he minds in it very, very well. But again, I think he's just getting started. This is his first album. Again, he's still in a position of just opening for folks and getting some buzz. And, he's gotten some favorable reviews from the British press. I don't know how much headway he's made in America beyond Geese fans. And even then they were probably like, okay, let's just get the Geese, get this guy off the stage. But so we'll see what happens. But yeah, he's a contender. Give him a few years and he could end up being a major star. Like he could end up being like another Sam Fender over in the UK. Chris here again. We usually end our episodes by inviting you to join our Curmudgeonly community page on Facebook. Well, we're picking up our efforts there. Know people just as passionate as us about rock and roll? Invite them to join in the fun. You don't actually need our permission to do so. Also, expect to see a lot more content up there moving forward. Our mission is to engage you, so darn it, we'll engage you like a fire hose, or maybe like a firehouse if we're going to give love to Gene Simmons. We may also be making a few offers. Want to wear a t-shirt featuring our logo? You may have that opportunity soon. So be a fellow curmudgeon, help us expand our little community, and share your own musings via your own posts. We're at facebook.com/groups/curmudgeonrock. Hey, everybody. Now it's time to talk about breakup songs. Not all sad songs, but we're talking about breakup albums. And one thing I'll say up front is, if you think number one is obvious, you're right, but stick with us. Stick with us. This is a good, strong list of 15 albums. Arturo mainly curated this list, and I basically agreed with his choices. And so, a couple of things about these albums. A great breakup album goes way beyond Bitch Done Me Wrong and Damn I'm Free. Yeah. It goes way beyond those things. And so you've got great songs, like great, singles out there, breakup singles like Since You've Been Gone by Kelly Clarkson and stuff like It's Too Late by Carole King and even She Hates Me by Puddle of Mud, which is like, which again, like that Lightning in a Bottle, bad band that struck lightning in a bottle. That's a really fun song. But here we're talking like way deeper than those great songs. So I guess we can get the proceedings started with kind of a surprise entry on this list, and a band you wouldn't think that would have the depth to be anywhere near this list, right, Art?
And indeed they do. Number 15, Phish with Rift from 1993. Phish were known then, and to an unfair extent still known now, as that ridiculously popular hippie jam band with the endless live improvisations and those goofy lyrics. On this album, though, the band show impressive maturity and a true evolution of their sound. Lyrically, it's a concept/narrative album about a man dreaming about the problems he's having in his romantic relationship, a relationship that is implied to be coming to an end. Musically, the band reached a new level of sophistication with much improved, much more solid songwriting. These are songs that can exist on their own without being platforms for jam sessions. The lyrics are tender, emotional, and introspective. For a band that has had Grateful Dead comparisons dog them throughout their career, you can argue that this album is to Phish what Working Man's Dead or American Beauty were for the Dead. Chris?
Yeah, although Billy Breathes is more similar to the American Beauty thing for Phish, and that came a few years later. But yeah, Rift. Here's my thing with Rift. When I was the summer of 1994, when I was 18, about to turn 19, I listened to this album obsessively every day for months.
I remember, yes.
I love this freaking record because it's not as jammy as like Junta and some of the other stuff that came before it. but there's still some killer shit from Anastasio on here. Like the song Maze is just incredible. I mean, it's still the stoner poetry that I remember fondly, but it still rocks absolute balls. And it's one of Trey's best studio recorded solos. Obviously the best Trey stuff out there is from all the live stuff that you can find out there in cyberspace. But yeah, just really, really impressive stuff here. The thing that stands out to me most actually comes from John Fishman, of all people. There's the little interlude Lengthwise.
Yeah.
Which it's just this little transitional segue and just sort of almost chanted bit that Fishman does. When you're there, I sleep lengthwise. When you're not, I sleep diagonal in my bed.
Yeah.
And I can totally relate to that because at the beginning of my marriage, anyway, the first couple years we were together before we got married, and then the first couple years we were married, I had real bad separation anxiety anytime Jenny went out of town, and
right.
and so I kind of relate to that idea of she's not here, am I okay? And so to me, that's really poignant. There's a couple other songs on here, like The Wedge is really cool in how it kind of describes things. And then, Fast Enough for You is really good. And then the end of the record is great. I mean, there's a couple of songs in a row that are really poignant as well. So yeah, good album. It was a favorite of mine when I was 18. I fell out of love with Phish when, Trey got too stoned for his own good and the music started to suck. And then I really fell out of love with Phish after that. And I occasionally go back to them, and this is one of those occasions. Thank you, Arturo. Rift holds up. Really great album.
Number 14, Blur, with their album 13 from 1999. By the time Blur reached the end of the 1990s, you really couldn't call them a Britpop band anymore. British, yes, but not pop. With their self-titled album from 1997, they maintained their knack for insanely catchy and witty songs, but they were drenched in a noisy, loud, heavy, punky indie rock sound that also had occasional drifts into trip-hop and electronica. For 13, they ventured further into experimental soundscapes that merged feedback-tinged guitar textures adorning romping punk and glam rock songs with subterranean, grimy electronic rhythms, with some tracks going even deeper into a kind of mutant trip-hop. The songs are more basic, crafted to accompany the grooves more than anything, but they lose none of Blur's patented catchiness or hookiness, even if it's all beneath a psychedelic haze. Lyrically, it's the most powerful and unashamedly introspective music Damon Albarn had written yet, detailing the deterioration of his relationship with Elastica frontwoman Justine Frischmann. On Trailer Park, Albarn laments, "I lost my girl to the Rolling Stones." Did that really happen? Did Mick Jagger really fuck Justine Frischmann? Well, anyway, it's one of Blur's very best albums, one that foreshadows Radiohead's Kid A for challenging sonic experimentation, and one that works as both a trippy headphones record and a passionate, gut-wrenching record. Chris?
Yeah, this is basically half a breakup record because you have stuff like Coffee and TV and some of the Grant Coxon stuff and some of the trip hop stuff.
The chorus is "We Can Start Over Again." I mean, that's a breakup.
Yeah, I suppose it's breakup adjacent, but the Albarn stuff. Here's the thing that weirded me out when I learned about the Justine Frischmann angle with this album. On the self-titled record from 1997, the opening track is "Beetle Bum," which is Albarn lamenting Frischmann's heroin addiction.
And his own dabbling with it too.
And his own dabbling, yeah. But essentially lamenting that Frischmann was strung out. Well, it turns out he was still with her.
Yeah.
when he wrote that. And then this is the breakup album. But yeah, some of the stuff is great. Like "No Distance Left to Run" is a tremendous song. Right. Tremendously sad. I mean, you can definitely feel the pain in Albarn's voice. He is no longer cheeky on this record. He is not in a cheeky headspace. And it really resonates. So, yeah, good record.
Yeah. Next, number 13, The Afghan Whigs with Gentlemen from 1993. Coming from Cincinnati, Ohio, this was the album that broke the band onto the fringes of mainstream rock as part of the alternative rock boom of the early 1990s. Lyrically, you won't find many records that are this searingly candid in its lyrical description of despair and desperation. Some modern ears may even be slightly offended at the near stalker-like qualities of singer-songwriter Greg Dooley's intensity. Musically, it's the sound of grunge getting in touch with 1970s soul, a direction the band would delve into much more so with future albums. At times, a harrowing and depressing listen. But then again, that's what some of the best music is supposed to make us feel. Chris?
Yeah, this is one of the better grunge-adjacent albums of that era, of the early 90s.
Yeah.
And Dully, I've seen him quoted as saying that he says his band is like a splicing of the Band, the Temptations, and Crazy Horse. and I think that actually does work. The soul influence is obvious with Dully, the way he sings, and also just the sensuality and the texture of the music. It's not really your standard crunchy guitar affair. It's a lot more textured and a lot more heartfelt than that. Like the song Debonair, which was an MTV heavy rotation buzzbin song and video, was just really intense as hell, both musically and lyrically. I mean, here's one of the lyrics, quote, "Tonight I go to hell for what I've done to you. This ain't about regret. It's when I tell the truth." And like I said, the riff on that song is just amazing. And so, yeah, just really, really strong. And like you said, almost stalkerish in Dully. Say what you want about Dooley as a vocalist or whatever, but the guy was honest. Yeah, he took it as far as he could, and just really compelling. That's what I'm saying. That I think Gentleman is a compelling album, and I think it holds up. It has its sensuality. They're a different band than Queens of the Stone Age, but they match Queen of the Stone Age as far as that underlying sensuality to the music and to the arrangements.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of sensual, whoa boy, the next few. Number 12, Mickie Newberry, Looks Like Rain from 1969. One of country music's lost great albums that should be remembered much more. This masterpiece is the quintessential stay home alone and drown your heartbreak in whiskey album. you know, as far as lush, beautiful song cycles about romantic loss go, this album is unparalleled. Oddly enough, the most famous song on the record, San Francisco Mabel Joy, isn't directly about a breakup, but about how circumstances and bad timing can ruin a couple's life. A different kind of heartbreak, I suppose. Chris?
Yeah. This album, a lot of these albums and a lot of great breakup albums have this depth and this sort of thematic swing to them where, you know, some of it is self-pity, some of it is anger, you know, some of it is depression, some of it is introspection and what did I do wrong and all of these things. No, this album is just straight mourning. Yeah. This is not a varied breakup record. This is Mickie Newberry in his feels. Like you said, in his whiskey, but in his feels. It just has this beautiful acoustic, you know, it's very simple. It was recorded on a 4-track. He kind of kicked off the outlaw country movement by saying, you know what, I can't stand the big Nashville studios. I'm going to go record this in a converted garage with a buddy of mine on a 4-track. And so it kind of lent an intimacy to it. So like I said, it has this really mournful tone to it. I'm a big fan of the song I Don't Think Much About Her No More, which is great because he's saying that he's moved on, but not quite and not really. Yeah. And it has this really clever lyrical trick that it does where in the first set of verses or the first chorus, he compares getting over it or moving on or the feeling that he had to poison berries left to die on the vine. And so the idea is that the poison berries he's saying they're dead now in his brain. Yeah. And then later at the end of the song, he refers to them as poison berries that cling to the vine, which he's saying, oh, okay, maybe they're not dead. And right. I'm like, ooh, that's good. That's really, really good. And then you mentioned San Francisco Mabel Joy, which, you know, again, is one of these sad story songs. And, I'm sure this has happened to a bunch of people where you find the love of your life, you get selfish, you ramble off, you realize you fucked up, you come back, and of course the punchline of this story is he comes back to find her, and turns out that she's now on the road looking for him.
Yeah.
So that's the punchline of that. So yeah, beautiful album and really seminal. To me, like Lonesome, Ornery, and Mean is an outgrowth of Lonesome, Ornery, and Mean by Waylon Jennings is kind of an outgrowth of Looks Like Rain. And maybe the next album too kind of springs from the same well.
Right. Number 11, Willie Nelson, Phases and Stages from 1974. In the early 1970s, Willie Nelson transitioned away from Nashville orthodoxy and the commercial, polished country music style favored by the establishment. What he and others like Waylon Jennings did would eventually be called outlaw country music with more soulful grit and sharper lyrics. And this concept album is one of outlaw country's finest moments. The narrative tells a story about a couple's divorce, with the songs on side 1 being from the woman's perspective and side 2 being from the man's. Yes, kids, this is from back in the days of physical media when music came in the form of black plastic discs made from vinyl. The songs themselves are gorgeous and sometimes haunting, showcasing Nelson's genius for empathy for the characters in his songs, especially in a genre of music, country music, that is known for mean-spiritedly throwing women under the bus. Red-Headed Stranger is the blockbuster album that followed and overshadows this one, but this one is an all-time great in its own right. Chris?
Yeah, some really good stuff here. And like you said, Willie in his storytelling and his role-playing, I love the song Pretend I Never Happened, which is from the woman's point of view, and he's basically saying, go ahead and just erase me from your memory and do that, which is kind of an empathetic thing or kind of a self-pitying or projecting thing to say. And then there's the song How Will I Know I'm Falling in Love Again, which basically is a paean to New Love. And oh boy, am I going to screw up again? Yeah. There's that. And then the best song on the album, which actually was a top 20 country hit back in the day, is Bloody Mary Morning.
Great title too.
Yeah. And this is him talking about getting on a plane from LA to Houston to basically bail on the woman that just dumped him. It's like he's making his distressed escape. Yeah. And so he's going to have the Bloody Mary on the plane, and he's going to go into the smog of Houston, and this is him getting away, basically running away. He's escaping.
Yeah.
And it's distressed escaping, but it's hilarious. Worth mentioning that this album was recorded in Muscle Shoals with the mid-70s Muscle Shoals house band, a member of which was a guy named David Hood, who's the bassist, and he is the father of Patterson Hood of the Drive-By Truckers.
Right. All those connections. Nice.
Yep. Yeah. I'm sorry. I also love the song It's Not Supposed to Be This Way.
Oh,
And it probably hits universally because, who among guys hasn't had an issue with an ex merrily moving along into a new relationship while you're still on your ass?
Right.
I know. I know. I've been there a couple of times, and it's a terrible feeling.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Number 10, Millie Jackson with Caught Up from 1974. One of the juiciest and most scandalous albums on this list. This is a concept/narrative album about a love triangle involving a man, his wife, and his mistress. The songs on side A are told from the mistress's perspective, while side B is told from the wife's. Why is it a breakup album? Because there's no way for this marriage to end but in divorce, as the songs clearly convey. It's also on the list because of how rich the music is with its densely layered arrangements. Of course, none of that would work if the songs weren't top-notch, with Jackson's powerful voice alternating between gospel-influenced power and spoken word, quote-unquote, rapping, if you will. A gripping record from start to finish. Chris?
Yeah, really fascinating album. And Millie Jackson had an incredible voice. It was on the Gladys Knight part of the R&B singer spectrum. It was very husky. But this album is just ballsy because, you think about it. First playing the mistress and dealing with all her feelings, the loneliness of waiting for the guy to become available and having that hope that he's eventually going to be in, almost having the knowledge that he's going to end up with her. So there's that kind of hopefulness and excitement there, but also the jealousy. One of the songs is her basically confronting the wife on the street and cussing her out and saying, "I'm going to win, bitch,"
Oh, jeez.
which is great. But then side two comes along, and it gets absolutely astonishing because this is the wife,
Yeah.
and this is the wife pretty much conceding defeat,
Yep.
and realizing that she's already losing, and then she's got the song "I'm through trying to prove my love to you," which is basically her final plea, and also a plea to the mistress of almost let me have another chance here,
Yeah.
So it's just really, really powerful. And then she's got the two spoken word things on here. One is literally called the rap, which is kind of funny. It's basically it's pretty salacious. And then you've got I'm through trying to prove my love to you, which has a little bit of a spoken word intro. And so those things are compelling. And it comes from her insecurity of thinking that she wasn't that great of a singer. So I guess as part of her stage act, she would go on these monologues,
Right.
because she figured that was a better thing, and she would improv these monologues. And so this was an attempt to capture that spirit, and it's brilliant. But this is probably one of the better soul albums in the mid '70s. One thing to note: the exact same backing band that was on Phases and Stages with Willie Nelson is the band for Caught Up. It's the Muscle Shoals house band. Same guys.
So Millie and Willie should have duetted.
Millie and Willie. That's what they should have named the album. Millie and Willie.
Talking about divorce and relationships crumbling. Who knows? Number 9, Amy Winehouse with Back to Black from 2006. The biggest hit from this album, Rehab, isn't about a breakup, but the vast majority of the songs are, particularly in how they detail the turbulent, toxic, drug-induced, up and down relationship Winehouse had with this guy named Blake Fielder Civil at the time. These songs come from one of the down periods in their relationship, and they're beautiful songs that are deeply soaked in 1960s R&B and soul, a little bit of Detroit Motown here, a little bit of Memphis Stax there, with a distinctly jazzy lilt. It does an expertly balancing act of mining the past, yet sounding new and fresh for a new generation, as it did in the noughties. Chris?
Yeah, this is brilliant retro futurism, and Winehouse's voice was just perfect for the revivalist 1960s soul thing. It just has that expressiveness and that resonance and that command and just that boomingness to it. And she just, all her pathos, all her guilt, all her defiance, all her heartbreak just drip in those honey-tinged vocals. Just really amazing stuff. And the production here is amazing. It's, the two producers here, Salam Remy, who is most known for his work with Nas, who, had jazz and reggae influences as well that he brings to some of his productions. See especially Tears Dry on Their Own, and also Just Friends, which has a cool-ass dub reggae beat behind it. But then you have Mark Ronson, who, this was his breakout as kind of a star. I mean, that guy was incredible. And he also had the Daptones as his disposal, which is Sharon Jones' backing band.
Right.
And so Ronson and the Daptones and Amy Winehouse, you're talking about, sort of 21st century revivalist all-stars all working on the same album. And that stuff is just incredible. I mean, that includes Rehab, that includes I'm No Good, that includes Back to Black, which is basically, Back to Black is one of the best I Lost My Fellow to His Ex songs I've ever heard. I mean, it's just amazing. And just a lot of good stuff. This is one of the best bands by anybody in the 21st century. I think it would be top 10 for me for 2001 to now. I think I would have this in my top 10. It's incredible.
Number 8, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, The Boatman's Call from 1997. In the mid-1990s, Nick Cave was in a relationship with a British rock goddess, PJ Harvey. Their breakup inspired Cave to write some of the most vulnerable, gut-wrenching, and deeply poetic songs of his life. What makes this particular breakup album unique is in how devoid of anger and bitterness it is. They are post-breakup songs expressing how much love he still has for the woman, as if he's imagining an alternate reality where they are still together. mostly piano ballads with minimal backing and subtle, tasteful string arrangements in specific spots, this record recast Cave as a romantic balladeer and was a minor commercial breakthrough for him. Chris?
Yeah, this album actually, a couple of things to it. It's a combination. He had gotten divorced right before he had a 4-month fling with PJ Harvey. So
it was a passionate one though too.
Yeah. So, but it combines the feelings of the divorce and the loss there with also, the lament of what could have been with PJ. Right. And so, you get Into My Arms, which again is this undying hope in the love that he still feels. And this idea that, I don't believe in an interventionist God, but if he exists, please put me back in her arms, which is, that's a very country music kind of sentiment. Yeah. But like you said, there's songs like Black Hair, which is just sexy as hell and just an odd rearview mirror celebration of what attracted him to PJ Harvey in the first place.
Right.
And then the thing about this album that makes it stand out from all the others on this list is the song There Is a Kingdom, which in the middle of, professing all of this still love to be had, even in the midst of the breakup, he's putting his eyes on God. And he's acknowledged there's a spiritual element to what he's doing. And so he puts this in that there is a kingdom and there is a king. Doesn't get more explicit than that. And to put that in the middle of this album, which is, got this sort of piano ballad, has almost a gospel feel to it, to put that in there. So it kind of steeps this in there's a spiritual element to the loss and to the love I felt and the loss I feel now. So yeah, really, really strong album from Nick Cave. I'm not a big Nick Cave fan, but this album's very good.
On this episode, we gave you the 15 greatest breakup albums of all time. For the next episode, we're going to give massive flowers to one of this podcast's favorite bands, Black Rebel Motorcycle Club. Early in their career, they were criticized for being an imitation of the Jesus and Mary chain. However, throughout the 2000s, they built a body of work that stands among the greatest rock bands of the 21st century. Dark, heavy rock with menacing swagger, killer hooks, killer riffs, brilliant songwriting, and a deep well of influences that reaches back to psychedelia, punk, blues, and folk. BRMC had it all in their awesome decade-long album run from 2001 through 2010. In a parallel universe where rock music is still part of the pop cultural zeitgeist, they would be an American institution and stadium rock gods. And that's why they are members of this podcast's Parallel Universe All-Star Team. Join us next time as the Curmudgeon Rock Report brings you the Parallel Universe All-Stars present Black Rebel Motorcycle Club. Okay, we continue with the 15 greatest breakup albums of all time. We're now number 7, the midpoint. Beck with Sea Change from 2002. Do you remember the actor Giovanni Ribisi?
Yeah.
Well, Beck dated his sister for a while. After their breakup, Beck was inspired to write a song cycle about his grief. Despite his reputation as a genre-hopping magpie, if you listen to Beck's discography from the very beginning, you'll find the guise of sad, lovelorn folky. You'll find that guise is always prevalent and lurking sometimes in the background or even in the majority of the foreground, as heard in 1998's Mutations. On this album, it comes all the way to the forefront, infused with a heavy Nick Drake influence and blessed with the songwriting skills and lyrical maturity he had accrued throughout the years up to now. Quite simply, the album has the most beautiful melodies Beck has ever crafted with his deepest lyrics, devoid of the ironic surrealism he was known for at the time. And some of the tracks have some brilliant string arrangements created by his father, David Campbell. In fact, this is the record that made people who weren't Beck fans previously to take him, that made them take him seriously. Chris?
Yeah, I think that's true. And here, as we get on a lot of these breakup albums, you have these expressions of self-pity mixed with expressions of anger. And so you juxtapose the song Guess I'm Doing Fine, which is a really incredible song, with Lost Cause, which is even better. I mean, Lost Cause is basically Baby, You're a Lost Cause, and just kind of a diss on Marissa Ribisi. And so to me, those are the two best songs on the album. And I also, on the Golden Age and Guess I'm Doing Fine, and I've always said this, I hear hints of post-Dwayne era Allman Brothers, like Eat a Peach Allman Brothers. It has this sort of soulfulness and sort of almost like that almost like beautiful. You can almost like imagine Dickie Betts sneaking in a slide guitar solo into those. So they have this sort of almond stretchiness to it. And so that's, a lot of folks don't mention that. And I hear it. Like first time I heard the Golden Age, I'm like, that's very almonds. And so I still feel that way. Here's something else, by the way, and I didn't mention this in a couple of instances, but there's another element to the breakup album genre that we should mention, which is birds on a perch. In the Mickey Newberry album and in the Nick Cave album, though they both have birds on a perch that evoke strong feelings, and yet here we have another bird somewhere in the middle of Sea Change that Beck is lamenting that how come I can't be more like that bird. So right. Yeah, so this is a thing. Birds on a perch on breakup albums from men that it sets them off and gets them all in their feels.
All right, number 6, Richard and Linda Thompson with Shoot Out the Lights from 1982. I put an asterisk next to this one due to its placement on the list. I'm sure you, Chris, will argue to have it much higher. As it is, it's a masterclass of songwriting, with Richard writing some of his most powerful songs, inspired by the deterioration of his marriage to Linda. If you really want to know about the emotional mechanics of dying love, these are the songs to listen to. Throw in Richard's incredible yet seemingly effortless guitar virtuosity and his tight-as-nails band, and you have an album that was unfairly removed from Rolling Stone's most recent 2020 version of the 500 greatest albums of all time. Chris?
Which is bullshit. It belongs in the top 100. This album is amazing because of the exercise that we have, that Richard and Linda are still professional collaborators, but their marriage is on the rocks. And so Richard was the primary songwriter and lyricist, and Linda was an amazing singer, but she sang what Richard served up for him. So yeah. Imagine Linda having to sing the song Walking on a Wire, which is basically Richard's expression of how she's driving him to almost fall off the wire. Yeah. So basically his inability to deal with his sense of grievance and confusion and inertia, and he puts it on her to articulate it. Yeah. And so, presuming Linda might have felt the same way, but that's almost like a punishment right there. So that's one punishment. The other punishment is subjecting her anyway to having her name on an album that has the song "Don't Renege on Our Love" on it. Which is Richard basically saying, "Come on, bitch, don't do this to me." And he's making this desperate plea to his wife. This is the opening song on the record. Just amazing guitar solo on that, and just an amazing galloping song. He's subjecting his professional partner to that as well. But then we get some counterbalance on the record too. You get the really sweet and lovely and just gorgeous "Just the Motion," which Richard writes this for Linda to sing, and this is the chin up. You might be going through the bad storms on the seas, but it's just the motion. You're going to be okay. And so it's this really kind of inspiring, everything is going to work out for the best. And it's just this really gorgeous, hopeful song, which is the other side of the breakup, which is we might be going through it, but we're both going to be okay. And so that's really, really profound. And then I think ending the album with Wall of Death is really profound. I'm not kidding. I think that's really profound because, yeah, it's essentially a bubblegum pop song about their excitement about riding the Wall of Death ride in an amusement park and comparing it to the other rides. But what it is it's really an expression of we're ready to take the big risks and move on and have our full sense of freedom. And so it's really a catharsis from being stuck in this gloomy sort of dying period of the relationship. And we get to move on by taking the big risks and feeling alive. It's the closest to being alive.
Yeah.
And then of course the middle of the record's weird too, because it veers off into these like strange lurking death songs that are not breakup songs, but they're like, did she jump or was she pushed? Is that because her husband dumped her?
Yeah.
Like Shoot Out the Lights, which is very, very dark. So these aren't breakup songs, but they are really, really dark, and they hint at violence.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all in all, just an extraordinary album. And it's like, Richard Thompson is just a legendary talent at this point.
Right. Speaking of legendary talents,
Yeah,
number
exactly.
5,
There's your
Marvin
transition.
Gaye with Here, My Dear from 1978. When Gaye announced that he was divorcing Anna Gordy, sister of Motown boss Berry Gordy, Gordy threatened to clean him up Anna, that is, threatened to clean him up in divorce court for all he was worth. They worked out a settlement where the proceeds from Gaye's next album would go directly to Gordy. What Gordy didn't know was that Gaye had planned a double album of pure bitter sentiment and romantic disillusionment, all aimed at his ex-wife. It sounds ridiculous, but Gaye's voice imbues these songs with a beauty and an emotional wallop that actually conveys true, sincere regret. Musically, it's steeped in a slightly jazzy, spacey funk that's irresistible. It's his most underrated album, and as far as breakup albums go, it's essential. Chris?
Yeah, this album is fascinating too, because what the deal was is I believe that the settlement was that Anna was entitled to half the advance. Or actually, no, let me rephrase it. She was entitled to the entire advance, which is $300,000. And then she was entitled to up to $300,000 in royalties. And I think that's what the settlement. So she was going to come away with $600,000 in earnings, which is, works out to about half. Like $1 million record was a hit at that point. And so Gaye originally was gonna just fuck around and like make a bad album and just fuck all. But then he's like, I can't really do that to my fans. I owe it to people to make a good album out of this. And so he decided, you know what? I'm gonna make this album about the divorce, and I'm gonna bring the dirty laundry to light. I mean, the song "Is That Enough" is hilarious because he wrote that right after a court proceeding where he got his clock cleaned, and that's him bitching about the proceeding. So it's really specific, and it's really petty. But he also has songs like Anna's Song, which is a more sweet remembrance of her. He's also got When Did You Stop Loving Me? When Did I Stop Loving You? Which is the real classic on the album, which is, like you said, that there's the regret and the mournfulness. And so he mixes it in and all that. And then you get this sort of weird throwaway at the end of the album, which I think is the best song on the album, which is a Funky Space reincarnation, which is Gaye clearly going for P-Funk.
Yeah.
And doing that, but he does it really, really, really well. It's a weird concept, but it works. So yeah, fascinating record, and yeah, that one of the most brutal albums ever made. I mean, you want to talk about a fuck you. I mean, I think the settlement was Anna Gordy's "fuck you," and the album was Gaye saying, "Oh yeah, well fuck you too." Yep.
Yeah, pretty much it. All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, number 4, Lucinda Williams with Car Wheels on a Gravel Road from 1998. There's no narrative arc or overall story or concept in this album, but since the vast majority of the songs deal with relationships coming to an end, it more than counts for this list. And it's high on this list because it's a masterpiece of devastating heartbreak, soulful singing, and powerful and really poetic songwriting, all set to rugged country music informed by rock and blues. It's no exaggeration to say that her amazing 20-year album streak from 1988 through 2007 marked her as one of the greatest American songwriters of all time, and this is the crown jewel in her discography. Chris?
Yeah, Strange Combination produced this record. It was 3 guys, 2 of which were Steve Earle and Roy Bittan. Steve Earle being like one of the great country singers, underground or indie country singer-songwriters of all time, and then Roy Bittan, who's like Bruce Springsteen's pianist.
Yeah.
And so just kind of an interesting combination. But what they came up with was extraordinary. Like I said, this is not a narrative breakup album, so it's unique in that sense. But it's about a series of breakups and old boyfriends. and it covers the gamut. You know, some of the breakups are the guy's faults, and some of them are her fault. And the cover of Randy Weeks's "Can't Let Go" just fits in perfectly. It's the one song she didn't write, but it might be the best song on the album, or the best, you know, the best arrangement and the best rendition and the best vocal performance on the record. And that's her being obsessive and not being able to let go. But there's a couple of other classics on this album, like "Drunken Angel" is amazing, which is her lamenting the deterioration of another old boyfriend into like basically a drunken buffoon. And then "Jackson," which ends the record, which is just basically her detailing, okay, I'm on the road from Texas up to Jackson, Mississippi, and she's naming towns that she's passing through, and I'm still leaving you behind. And I'm still and you're still in the past, and I'm still free. The farther I get away, the easier this becomes. And so it's a real statement of liberation. But yeah, like you said, the arrangements, this probably is the definitive Americana album. Wouldn't you agree? Mm-hmm.
It's up there for sure.
I think it is because it's this country rock pop hybrid that, you know, it's a twang, but it kind of exists outside of pure country music. It's, you know, it's got this sort of pop. It's like this pop country R&B hybrid.
Yeah, you know, it's heavy on blues. There's got real strong blues
and some blues. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Yeah, I really think that. Yep.
Sure. Number 3, Wilco with Yankee Hotel Foxtrot from 2002. Wilco's 1999 album, Summer Teeth, was a turning point in their career as it saw the band leave their gritty country rock behind for orchestrated pop and more sonic experimentation. They took the latter to even further heights with Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, which saw them finally establish themselves as an art rock band, albeit an art rock band firmly grounded in roots music. The story behind the making and release of the album overshadowed the music when the record came out. How the band nearly fell apart during its making, with Jeff Tweedy's Chief Lieutenant Jay Bennett leaving the band after recording was done. How Warner Brothers refused to release it because they deemed it too uncommercial. How Warner Brothers released Wilco from their contract. How Wilco leaked the album online and watched it generate massive buzz. And how Wilco eventually got signed by None Such Records, a subsidiary of Warner's, and got the album eventually released, meaning Warner Brothers paid for the album twice. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, the 20-plus years since has seen the album's reputation only grow in stature as one of the greatest and most ambitious musical statements of the 21st century. And yes, it's a breakup album because the whole record is a song cycle about how distance can ruin a relationship. Chris?
Yep. And the way that they convey that distance is kind of astonishing. This is where all the bells and whistles come in. So you have this sense of airiness and dissonance and, you know, sort of things floating around in the air. And the conceit is that it's getting harder to receive the NATO distress signals.
Right.
Yankee Hotel Foxtrot is an allusion to the NATO alphabet. And so, you know, getting the distress signals and getting the communication and keeping things together. And so what you get is you get these really gorgeous, tight, almost perfect pop, country-ish rock songs, but they're just barely cohering because of all the noise and all the space that's floating around them. And so that adds to the sort of the desperation of the album. I mean, you know, and of course, it starts with one of the best lines in rock and roll history. "I am an American aquarium drinker. I assassin down the avenue." Makes no sense, but it's wonderful. Yeah. And then, but you think about it, like this happens. This idea of the dissonance and the noise and the radio frequencies breaking up, threatening everything. It runs through "I'm trying to break your heart," "Ashes of American Dreams," "Poor Places," "Reservations," "Radio Cures," and a couple of other songs. A few other things worth mentioning too, like a lot of breakup albums, it has the either "I'm still in love with you" or "I'm moving on" love song, which is "I'm the man who loves you," which is really, really great. And then it's got this ballad in it that is just absolutely incredible. It's in the same vein of Richard Thompson's Just Emotion, Jesus, Etc.
Yeah.
Jesus Don't Cry. And it's weird. And I never really understood this until I read about this it was on the Genius Lyrics page about it. is that there's speculation that the chorus about tall buildings shaking is an invocation of 9/11.
But it's not, because he wrote that song before 9/11.
Yeah, but he said it was reflective of the mood in the country, or just the mood in general. It was an illustration of how rough things could be, and so the idea is I'm here for you. You can rely on me, and the tears down your cheeks being tuned to chords, and all of this, and just the imagery. It's just an amazing song, and just amazingly well crafted, amazingly well arranged, and it's just a real standout. So it's the hopeful song in an album where hope's not there. And then you've got Reservations, which is kind of the Nick Cave thing of being like, I'm still in love with you. So I've got reservations, but not about you. So you're still tops, even though we're broken up. Right. So lot of just amazing stuff going on in this record. It's another top 10 album for the 21st century.
I think it's the best album of the 2000s, of the noughties, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Right. All right, number 2, Fleetwood Mac with Rumors from 1977. So let's do a rundown. Lead singer and guitarist have been a couple for several years, but their relationship falls apart, especially after the lead singer starts fucking the drummer. The bassist and keyboardist have been married for years, but the bassist is a hopeless drunk who drives the keyboardist away to have affairs with one of the band's roadies and the Beach Boys' Dennis Wilson, with the marriage ending in divorce. All this was happening during the recording of Rumors, informing all of its songs and helping create rock's ultimate soap opera album. That sounds glib, but put that aside. These are astounding songs with stinging lyrical depth, exquisite guitar work, and some of the most gorgeous song constructions ever crafted. Seriously, this is the Pet Sounds of the 1970s, and very few albums, if not no records, have aged as well as this album is aged. Chris?
Yeah, this is probably aged into being a top 10 album of all time.
Maybe, yeah.
Perfect album, not only in its production and not only in its songwriting, but also in its balance. You said there's some bitterness on display here, but there's also some hope and, and also some joy to be found on here too. So for every complaint about being denied makeup sex, as on the amazing Secondhand News, which is my favorite song on the album, it's the opener, there you get an optimistic look towards a brighter future, as with Don't Stop. Right. And you also get Christine McVie's awesome ode to her rebound affair, You Make Loving Fun, which I can't imagine that John McVie enjoyed playing on. And I think the best song, I think the best thing objectively on Rumors is The Chain, which all 5 members get a writing credit on it. But the first half of it is really a meditation on the screw-ups and the bitterness. You said we'd never break the chain, but here we are, and it happened. And then it's kind of like Fleetwood Mac's Freebird, in the sense that the first half is this lament, and then it goes into this wild sort of amazing. You get this little amazing bass lick from John McVie, and then it's Buckingham just shredding, and so it's almost like this release. It's almost like this freedom. You said it, but here we are moving on. So and getting aggressive and really having our catharsis. And so as a statement, that song is just amazing. So. Yeah, one of the most perfect albums ever made, and you had the soap. Just even if it wasn't a true breakup album, just the fact that they made it under those circumstances, it might as well be.
Right. So. And drum roll, number 1, not surprisingly, Bob Dylan, Blood on the Tracks from 1975. What is there to say about this album that hasn't been written about already? Dylan was still married to Sarah Lowndes when this record came out, with them divorcing 2 years later. But the end of their relationship was a slow, grueling grind, with them being married only in name when this album was recorded in 1974. Dylan was in a prolonged artistic slump at this time, and this record reinvigorated both his artistic and commercial fortunes. The surrealistic imagery and symbolism returned in his lyrics, but they were couched with a searing emotional intensity and an eye for cinematic detail that made them transcendent. The music that housed his words was delivered in the most tightly crafted, melodically rich songs he had crafted in seemingly ages. While never known, not even to this day, as a conventionally good singer, one could argue that Dylan's vocal performance throughout Blood on the Tracks is note for note perfect. His timing, his phrasing, even a newfound vocal range and hitting notes he hadn't hit before. It's one of those albums that make you make a deep sigh, especially after experiencing it for the first time.
Yeah,
Chris?
and it is an album that you experience. Also, the ultimate bird on a perch.
Yeah, that's on this album too.
Yeah, he's singing a song for me at his own expense, and I'm just like that bird. That's from You're a Big Girl Now. Just an astonishing achievement. I implore everyone listening who hasn't done this yet to, at some point in the next week, go into a quiet room or a quiet space, find a high-quality download of Blood on the Tracks, use really good headphones, and follow along to a lyric sheet. And you have to make this a total attention experience, because it wasn't until I did that in 2000. I had heard the album a couple times before, and you know me, I used to joke about Shelter from a Storm, that, so that all I heard was ding 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 ding. But then when I took the exercise seriously, then I'm like, holy shit. And yeah, this is one of the best albums ever made. And what I love here is he's definitely melding story songs with more personal laments and outcries. And some of the lyrics hit like a tire iron to the heart. My personal favorite of these lyrics, non-Idiot Win division, I'll get the Idiot Win in a second, is, quote, "In a little hilltop village, they gambled for my clothes. I bargained for salvation, and she gave me a lethal dose. I offered up my innocence and got repaid with scorn. Come in," she said, "I'll give you shelter from the storm." Wow. That's just stunning. That whole song is stunning, because the first few 4-line verses in that song describe the process of falling in love beautifully. So this is an album not only about divorce, but also about the process of love and falling in love. And it just goes end to end, and it's incredible. And like I said, there's Idiot Wind, which may be the best song ever written and ever recorded, because the anger and disgust and rage and sense of revenge, the thrill he gets of like saying, "How dare you do this to me?" And I can do this for the very first time, and now I'm finally free. And just a lot of that. But then he ends what makes that song amazing is you go through this incredible like rush of this kind of hate singing, and then at the end he includes himself in the last chorus.
Right.
"We are idiots, babe. It's a wonder we still know how to breathe," as opposed to just limiting it to her. So, I mean, that's just an accomplishment too. And again, just a lot of just transcendent shit on this record. Like even Simple Twist of Fate, which is, the song of like, the last dalliance with somebody that you're about to lose. And then it's like, she leaves before you wake up, and then you go to try to find her on the pier and she rejects you again. Just, really just heart-wrenching stuff. And then, of course, like, all great breakup albums, and this one is no exception, has the "I'm Falling in Love Again" song, which is "You're Gonna Make Me Lonesome When You Go," which is just him reveling in the excitement of love. Yeah. So there you go. The best breakup song album ever made. I'll make this joke now. I've said for years that my personal favorite breakup album is AC/DC's Back in Black.
Why is that?
Oh, because look, especially when you are on the receiving end of the dumping, there's like a guy who's been dumped. You put that on, it's super aggressive, balls out, riff rock about drinking and fucking, and it's just a complete loudish, awesomely like thrilling rock record, and it is an ultimate catharsis to blast that album after you've been dumped and sing along to it and just revel in the pure rock genius of the album. And so I'm saying, as it for substance, of breakup, you go to Blood on the Tracks. But for the catharsis, for the experience, for the adventure, and for as a tool, you go to Back in Black.
And here I am alternating between the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds and Eels' End Times when I'm dealing with romantic heartbreak. Here you go with AC/DC.
Well, I'm kind of being half serious there, but yeah, Blood on the Tracks is my sad record too.
Right.
That Pet Sounds as well. I mean, like I said, all the albums you would expect that we would turn to, and a couple of Neil records too, like On the Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the Beach is probably my go-to for.
But it's not really a breakup album.
It's not a breakup album, but it is a leaving the bullshit behind record.
It's a fuck the world record.
Yeah, and like I said, it's got motion pictures. Yeah. I wouldn't buy, borrow, sell, or trade anything I have to be like one of them. I'd rather start all over again. Yeah. I mean, that's my lyric. That's my theme lyric.
Yeah.
In life. So anyway. That was a total non sequitur, but a good way to end this album, I think, or this episode. Go check out all 15 of the albums that we mentioned. We will have representative samples on our Spotify playlist, which you can find in the episode descriptions of wherever you get your podcasts from. We always advertise that. So, any final thoughts, Art?
No, this actually was a pretty easy list for me to compile. I've had this episode in my head for a while. Thinking in January, dating back to then when Valentine's Day was looming, I thought, you know what? It's about time we did a breakup albums episode, so in our perverse curmudgeonly way, forget love songs. We're doing breakup albums. And so it was great. And yeah, the top half of this list may be a little conventional and predictable, but hell, fuck it. It's fact.
They are the best. I mean, there's no denying that. That's why I didn't fight you on this list.
Yeah,
because in some ways it was a pretty obvious list. I mean, there's a few others that we can get into, but anyway, let us move on. And so with that, folks, we encourage you to join our Facebook Curmudgeonly community. It's a fabulous curmudgeonly community, and we keep things curmudgeonly up there, and so do our frequent flyers. We all revel in a love for rock and roll. It's a tight-knit community. It's invite only, but chances are we'll let you in, and we want to spread the love as much as possible. If I had to do it again, I would not make it a closed group. That's a problem on Facebook. But anyway, come and join us. We'll let you in. Facebook.com/group/curmudgeonrock. Got something to say about our list? Is there an album that we missed? Do you have a favorite breakup album? Let us know. Hit us up at curmudgeonrock@gmail.com. And I already mentioned the Spotify playlist. We'll have representative songs from each of these 15 albums for you, and you can find that wherever you get your podcasts. And so, as I always like to say at the end of these episodes, dig it!